Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today's video is a Black Library review. We're going to be checking out the Warhammer Age of Sigmar story Prophet's Ruin by C.L. Werner. Now, as always, I like to listen to the audio versions of this. This came out on audio a couple of weeks ago. I know the story's been around for a little bit longer. It is a sequel of another story called Overlords of the Iron Dragon, which is another Caradron Overlords novel. So I readily recommend you go check out Overlords of the Iron Dragon, which we have done a review of. I'll leave that up the top of the video. If you're getting excited for the new Caradron Overlords Battletome to be coming out, these are probably a couple of cool books to go and check out. But this one is narrated by Andrew James Spooner, who I really enjoy all his narrations and voice acting throughout the stories. Definitely right up there with my favourites. You know, I think along with Richard Reed might be my top two or two of my top three. But definitely a really good narration of the book. But anyway, let's get talking about the story. Threatened with losing their ship to pay their investors, Brockrin, Olesen and the crew of the Iron Dragon embark on a perilous voyage to seek out the fabled Sky Island of Prophet's Ruin. Glory and riches await them if they can discover the secrets of the infamous legend, but it is a voyage undertaken by only the brave and the desperate. Beset by enemies, old and new, partly why you want to read Overlords of the Iron Dragon first, Brockrin's journey is fraught with danger and overshadowed by a terrible truth. No Caradron vessel has ever escaped from the grip of this floating sea of weeds and vines. Will the Iron Dragon be the first? And so, the story's purpose though. For me, I don't think this does anything too different than what Overlords of the Iron Dragon does. The story, as said, is a continuation of said story. It once again gives us a nice deep look into the culture and sort of the ideology of the Caradron Overlords, how they sort of interact with each other, along with the inner workings of a ship, you know, showing, you know, how these sort of ships function, what's is sort of happening and all of that, you know, what members of the crew have what say, how these sort of things work. It's really quite interesting, and we've definitely just got the brand new Caradron miniature that's coming out is very much a Logisticator, which is pretty cool, because they're heavily mentioned in these stories, and I'm glad to see that that sort of character mentioned is getting a model in that new Caradron Overlords model coming out. And so our main character is once again Brockrin Olesen, the captain of the Iron Dragon. Brockrin is a character who apparently has, you know, a string of bad luck attached to him, or maybe it's attached to the Iron Dragon itself. Who knows? But he's a Dwarden that, you know, just can't seem to get a good break. He can't, you know, just can't have nice things happen to him. It's a bit sad. But he's a really fun character. He obviously, in the previous book, and I will say spoilers now because you sort of can't talk about where he's at as a character without sort of spoiling where the book was going. So definitely spoilers ahead probably for the rest of this. If you haven't read Overlords of the Iron Dragon, go and do so first. But you've had your warning. Now we're going to keep talking. Brockrin Olesen, you know, his crew mutinied against him under the sort of pressure of the former Logisticator of his crew, and so he could have, I guess, sold them all out and said, well, they mutinied against me, that's why there was no profit on the last voyage, but instead he sort of takes it all on the chin. He saves his crew despite them having turned on him, which is, you know, quite a noble thing to do. He forgives them. But maybe they're indebted to him a little now because of this thing he does, you know, otherwise they would have been in a lot of personal debt themselves. So, you know, it's this relationship at the start of the story that he has with them that is, you know, they're very indebted to him. And so, over the course of the story, what does change about this main character, Brockrin? Brockrin, I think, over the course of the last story, Brockrin's become a lot more suspicious of a lot of things over the story. He's definitely, you know, not as forgiving, maybe at some points. He's not as believing of other people as he maybe once was at the start of Overlords of the Iron Dragon. And over the course of the story, I think it's re-finding that sort of character that we started with Overlords of the Iron Dragon, which is quite a nice story arc. You know, we've gone from Overlords of the Iron Dragon, where he sort of becomes a more suspicious, more resentful character, and he maybe starts a little bit of this way, maybe not resentful at the start of the story, maybe that's sort of gone. He's definitely, you know, forgiven them, but sort of he's not as trusting as he once was, and he sort of learns to have that trust come back by the end of the story. And so what does this book do well, though? For me, I love the fantastical, sort of over-the-top almost setting of this story. Much like its prequel, Overlords of the Iron Dragon, it does a really great job at showing you the wondrous high fantasy setting of Age of Sigmar. I've always viewed Age of Sigmar as a high fantasy setting that is the high fantasy setting a high fantasy world would dream of. If someone in Lord of the Rings, if someone in Warhammer Fantasy, if someone in Deltora Quest or whatever, you know, those other high fantasy settings, and yes, they're high fantasy, they exist in a world that's not our own, that makes them high fantasy, but it's, you know, those fantastical worlds and those high fantasy worlds, Age of Sigmar is the fantasy world they would dream up. That's sort of how I like to view it. And, you know, we had obviously the awesome sort of floating mountain fortress in Overlords of the Iron Dragon. Now we've got this floating sort of forest. It really does sort of give you this awesome sort of look at what Warhammer Age of Sigmar has to offer. And so, who would like this book? I mean, with the upcoming Caradron's Overlord release, and boy oh boy, does, just side note, does that Battletome art not look fantastic or what? This and Overlords of the Iron Dragon, and even, you know, Archonauts Oath, Draki Flint novel, would all be really great places to grab some inspiration for that upcoming release. I think I love it when these books sort of come out, or they do the audio re-releases or re-releases of the books around the time when we're about to get these new stories coming out and these new Battletomes coming out alongside them. For me, they just create, you know, a lot of nice buzz and hype for myself. And if you're excited about Caradron Overlords, I'd recommend going and giving these books, these two, and indeed Draki Flint, a listen beforehand to really, you know, get you pumped for that Caradron Overlords release. And so, in summary, like, this is a really solid success to Overlords of the Iron Dragon, which I really did enjoy. I think, you know, this keeps up the levels of quality that were in Overlords of the Iron Dragon, and I do get a really good feeling that we complete Brokran's story arc nicely. Like I said, it sort of goes full circle. We're sort of, you know, ending with the sort of trusting, sort of nice character that we had at the start. It sort of goes full circle there for him. And, you know, while I would love another story about Brokran, I've really come to enjoy him and his crew and the Iron Dragon and the adventures that C.L. Werner brings to Caradron Overlords. I wouldn't be upset if this is the end. I think it's ended nicely. It's that sort of point where it definitely could continue, but it's wrapped up nicely, which I think is a perfect way to have these sort of 1 or 2 book series, and maybe there might be more in the future, but it doesn't have to be because it's all ended nicely. If you've read Prophet's Ruin, if you've read Overlords of the Iron Dragon, if you're excited for Caradron Overlords, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this story and about, you know, the others as well, about why you're excited for KO, what this book has sort of done for your KO dreams and stuff like that. Let us know down in the comments below. And so that's the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and also drop a comment down below letting us know what you thought of the video. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our little community here at Sinful Gaming, we have a Discord server which is linked down in the video's description. Also linked down in the video's description are the best ways to help support the channel, either by Patreon or YouTube members, or by grabbing yourself some channel merch from our Teespring or Ko-fi stores. As a special thank you to all our Patreon and YouTube members, we'd like to give them all a shout out for their amazing support. So thank you to our Patrons: Christian Weir, Soren, Kenny Lowell, Outer Shot First, Andrew Bowen, The Rising Ape, Q Dynamic, Anthony B, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domir, Mark Harvey, James Cader, Benjamin Swallows, Red Martin, Iron Grinch, Nicholas Conomos, Colorblind Magic, Daniel Etherington, and Andy C. And a special thank you to our YouTube members: Green Roots Gaming, Ronya, Lockloric, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, Wolfric Nick, Broken Chef, Ariana Edwards, Revenar, Pink Nico 5, Robin Mankiller, Monty's Tabletop Terrain, John Castle, Davis Weird, James South, James Tillman, and Dylan Areno. Lastly, a special thank you to Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork you see here on the channel. Thank you for everything. And also a massive thank you to all our moderators on our Discord server and everyone that comes and helps film the battle reports on the channel. Thank you all once again. Stay safe, everyone. Stay well. And most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.